In the village east of Salisbury and north of Herringsfold, south of Winter's Cottage and west of Abermann, a beauty and a shepherd sit watching the sunrise. The sky became a mirage and the moon began to slip away. The beauty, Idna, watched the sunrise like it was the very last time she would ever be able to see it again. The shepherd, Thurlow, watched Idna as if it were the last time he would ever see those beautiful blue eyes that he couldn't help but dive into as if it were a vast ocean. The morning was perfect for the two of them. They were as happy as could be, and they were each content in the company and the view. Idna and Thurlow had been the talk of the village as of late. They seemed like the perfect couple even though their grandparents were bitter rivals. The story seemed to change every time they heard it. Idna's grandmother, Blythe, said that Thurlow's grandmother, Jocelyn, stole her best horse. Thurlow's grandfather, Morris, said that Idna's grandfather, Aldrich, burned down the barn he had built as a child. Jocelyn said that Blythe let loose their herd of sheep, and Aldrich said that Morris broke his cart. Those were the stories they said most of the time, but not one of them could agree with another. Both of their parents had grown tired of the family feud as children and were glad to see the two of them together. Their grandparents, however, were certainly not. Blythe and Aldrich came up with a plan to get Idna and Thurlow away from each other. They decided to hire a professional in mischief who could be easily bought. They hired a man who was traveling through town to do their dirty work. He said he had no name, no family, and no origin. He was simply called the puppeteer. He knew for a fact that he could get Thurlow and Idna away from each other, but the price was steep. They had to sell their best horse, give him a small diamond, and buy him an expensive suit. To them, it was a small price to pay for their Idna to be away from Thurlow. While this transaction occurred, the puppeteer was still at work. He had earlier that morning received a job from another angry couple. Jocelyn and Morris had also hired the puppeteer to separate Idna and Thurlow. He asked for a price they were willing to pay. They had to give them their best traveling cart, 50 yards of pure white silk and 20 pounds. To them, it was a small price to pay for their Thurlow to be away from Idna. The next day, the puppeteer went to work. He spent all day at the tailor. He spent all night with the miners. He spent the next day at the creek. The day after was Sunday, so he spent the day at the church. On Monday, he went all around town busily working, taking his final 2 stops at the homes of Idna and Thurlow, giving them the information he needed for his plan to be in the perfect place. On Tuesday, Blythe and Jocelyn found themselves both on the hill by the creek, watching from a distance what was to occur by the creek. They bickered and fought for several minutes until they realized that the puppeteer was gone. At the same time, Aldrich and Morris found themselves on the other side of the river, fighting and bickering until they too realized that the puppeteer was gone. From behind in the shadows, the puppeteer crept up to the women silently. He looked at Blythe and then Jocelyn, both of them mystified about where he had gone. "My plan is my plan, and I shall do it in peace," he said. "Please leave me to my work, or I shall leave you without my ease." The puppeteer then walked over to the other side of the river over the small bridge behind the men. They looked just as mystified as the grandmothers had been. He repeated, "My plan is my plan, and I shall do it in peace. Please leave me to my work, or I shall leave you without my ease." Soon Blythe and Aldrich were reunited in their home. They sat and wondered whatever was wrong. Something about that puppeteer made them feel strange. His plan was his plan, but they weren't sure that it was the same as theirs. Jocelyn and Morris soon after returned to their home and sat down. They pondered over some doubts they had held for several days. Something about that puppeteer just didn't add up. He seemed rather nice but so mysterious. He never revealed his plan, his scheme. As the grandparents sat in confusion and thought, something was occurring they had ought to see but would not have wanted to see. For at that same moment, the puppeteer's plan unfolded. Thurlow went up to Idna and went down on one knee. He showed Idna the diamond ring. Their parents and the priest came out from the woods. The ceremony was held, and there they stood, the bride and groom. They sang and they laughed, for their dreams had come true. Out came a cart covered in silks of white with a sign on the back stating, "Just married." The very best horse in the village rode them home in their dresses and suits. They would always remember the puppeteer's plan and their clever parents who had put it all together. It's been said that if you play with fire, you're going to get burnt. Well, I don't know who said this load of crap, but whoever said this must be a wet blanket. In fact, I say mankind was born to play with fire, to study it, to even control it. Man should not fear power, but harness it. Creation and destruction go hand in hand, so we have a choice to make. Do we jump into the unknown and try to shape our future, or should we hide? I've never been one who runs from my problems. When my parents split up, I didn't waste time crying. I helped my mom pack up boxes. I knew my dad, shortcomings and all, would still offer me a better future. He was in line to inherit the matchmaking business after all. My family has been in the matchmaking business for like 3 or 4 generations now, so it goes without saying that I was expected to follow suit. It may only be worth $500,000 or so, but I have plans. Don't listen to all those people claiming that lighters are somehow better. Speaking of matches, did you know that there are too many types of matches? Those that require a special surface to strike, and my personal favorite, strike anywhere matches. Both of which my family sells if you happen to be interested. We offer the finest fire harnessing devices around. Back to the story. I knew my mom would be fine when she left. She was dating my friend's dad at the time. I could take credit for this, but I wasn't the one that gave his first wife cancer. He was lonely, and I was tired of my friend crying about his problems. His dad had plenty of money from the life insurance, and his mom wasn't that great. Some people just don't know how to make it in this world. I mean my crying friend, not his dead mom, though she didn't really make it too far. Maybe that's where he got it from. My dad was fine. He needed to spend more time at work anyways. The business was close to going under at the time, so I guess I saved it in a way, which is a good thing since I have plans for it. Anyways, he remarried after a year. She wasn't anything to look at in my opinion. However, her family had money, and when I say money, I mean like they owned like 5 houses kind of money. I never cared that much for her, so when she died in the fire, I'm not going to lie, I didn't cry. We all have to die sometime, right? My dad could have used the money to grow the company, but he blew it on pointless crap. He bought the best of the best headstone and casket. I remember thinking, she doesn't care, she's dead. I knew that I would never be like my dad in that moment. He lacked vision and was afraid to make his mark. By this point, I was a senior in high school and I was working on the weekends. My dad couldn't pay me much for the work I did at the matchmaking factory. I really didn't mind since I was really just investing into my future. Besides, I had a second job at the local theater. It was a job. Yeah, it sucked at times, but I've been told that's the way things are. I don't do the whole woe is me crap, so I made it worth my time. They didn't see my value there, but I saw it. So I made some extra cash on the side by selling half-off tickets to kids from school. They gave me money and I opened the side door for them. Yeah, they fired me when they found out, but I had built up a nice savings by that time. Did you know that if you invest just $100 a month, you can be a millionaire? You have to start early and know what to invest in like me. I'm going to be a billionaire someday. If you have money, you can have power, and if you have power, you control the future. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, just before the fire. So I just want to say that I did not start the fire. Perhaps one of our matches could have been used, but that by no means places me at the fire. For all I know, it was a lighter that caused that fire. What I do know is that theater must have been made of some quality wood because it burnt long and hot. You see, if a match is made of good wood, it will burn strong but too quick. We always use the finest wood at the matchmaking company. Other companies make matches out of cheap wood. Their matches snap or fold when striking. They burn too fast or fade out too soon. If you ever need quality matches, feel free to call me anytime. I'm getting off track again. I don't think anyone died in the fire, if I remember right. Besides, I had more important things to worry about. I was busy moving at the time, so I didn't keep track of local news. I was moving away to go to college. I thought I was going to go learn the secrets to being successful. Let me tell you something, college is a scam. The secret is you have to take control of life, and they only want to control you. I was not going to waste my time there. So after a semester, I left that deadweight school behind. Besides, I decided I could join the military. However, they denied me after a week of basic and some physic evals. I really don't care, it's their loss. I've been applying to upper management positions, but I haven't found the right job yet. I was living at my friend's house, or should I say with my mother, so I had time to figure it all out. Next thing I knew, the cops showed up, and I was thrown in here. They say I killed my parents. They think I made them go to the factory and burnt it down. I mean, come on, do I really look like that kind of person? I know I'm in line to get the insurance and all, but I didn't do it. Between me and you, the jury can't possibly find me guilty, right? I got money now, so I can get the best lawyers. My question to you is, are you going to be one of those lawyers? George, Randy said, I need your help. You and Janice are so happy together, and I want that for me. I'm tired of being a bachelor. I need advice from someone who knows how to find the perfect woman. Will you help me? Randy, one of the reasons you're still single is that you're cheap. No woman wants to go out with a guy who has a coffee jar full of pennies. Quarters I can understand, but pennies. The U.S. Mint reports that $62 million in pennies are lost every year, Randy said. People see them on the street and leave them there, not me. And how's that working out for you? In the last 10 years, I have collected 1,500 pennies. Do you have any idea how much money that is? $15. Make fun all you want, Randy said. I'm not cheap, I'm frugal. I know there's a woman out there looking for someone like me. All right, George said. Let's jump on one of these free dating apps and put together a profile. Let's go right to the tell us about yourself section. What do you want to say? I like cliff diving, flying with the blue angels, pina coladas, and long moonlight walks on the beach. What are you writing a song? Have you ever done any of those things? Look, Randy, you can't lie on your profile. That's not how you find true love. So I'll ask you again. What do you like to do? Randy thought about it for a second. I like catching grasshoppers for my cat, Hazel. You're trying to attract a beautiful woman, not Jane Goodall. Let's try this again. What do you like to do? I like reading. Let's try listing something a couple can do together. I like going to the movies and watching TV. Okay, George said. Now we're talking. What kind of movies do you like? I like documentaries and those autopsy shows. What would you call that? Erectile dysfunction, pal. Look, are you serious about finding someone, or is this just a game to you? I like having sex, Randy said, again, not good for the profile. I had pina coladas and long walks on the beach, and you told me not to write that. I'm reconsidering it. Let's skip this part for now and move on to a description of what you look like. That one's easy, Randy said. I'm short, fat, and bald. Are you out of your frickin' mind? The only one who will respond to that post is Winnie the Pooh. What are we going to do? Randy said. We're going to lie. George and Randy spent the next 2 hours fabricating fantasies they thought women would love. They painted Randy as an athlete who injured his leg during the 2012 Olympics, but who still finished the race. George compared Randy to Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, and Bruce Willis. They went back to the cliff diving profile and the Blue Angels. Quite happy with themselves, George and Randy went out for a beer. They were patting each other on the back when Randy blurted out, I got a hit. Let me see. George grabbed the phone out of Randy's hand. Oh my goodness, she's gorgeous. It says she's from Maryland and she can ride a mechanical bull. George winked at Randy. I don't have a mechanical bull. George continued. She wants to meet you. Hit reply and set up a meeting. What should I say? Never mind, I'll do it. George typed quickly. Can you meet me tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the Starbucks in the Porter Ranch Shopping Center? I'll be wearing a Dodgers cap. The reply didn't take long. It's a date. I can't wait to hear all about your Olympic experience. I'm screwed, Randy said. She thinks I'm good-looking and an Olympic athlete. Misdirect and deflect, my friend. Tell her you injured your leg while jumping over one of the hurdles, but that you still finished the race like a champion. Tell her it's painful to talk about, and then ask her what she likes to do. Got it, Randy said. Misdirect and deflect. Should I do that the entire time we're together? Yeah. Starbucks was busy with would-be writers, business people, and students. Randy sat nervously thinking about whether he should hug his date or shake her hand. He wondered if he should order a coffee for himself or wait until she got there. He considered whether or not to buy her a cup of coffee, or if he should expect her to buy her own. Starbucks wasn't cheap. He looked around, and much to his dismay, 2 other guys were wearing Dodgers caps. A woman who matched the profile picture walked in. She was wearing skin-tight jeans and a Baltimore Ravens football jersey. Man, she looked hot. She walked over to one of the guys wearing a Dodgers cap and spoke to him briefly. The guy wrote something down on a napkin and handed it to her. Next, she walked to the other guy with the cap. They chatted for a minute, and then she excused herself. The woman scanned the room and spotted Randy. He waved hello and sheepishly stood from his chair. The woman looked down at her phone, made a gesture that indicated something urgent had come up, and immediately walked out the front door. Before the door could close, George came walking in. "What the hell are you doing here?" Randy said. "You didn't think I was going to miss this train wreck, did you?" George laughed. "I've been standing outside the whole time. Dude, she totally dissed you." "I think she got an emergency call on her phone and had to leave." "Emergency call my ass. Don't worry about this chick. She was way too good looking for you anyway." George slapped him on the shoulder and walked away, leaving Randy alone at the table. "Dating site," a voice said. Randy thought the comment might have come from a woman at the table next to him. "I'm sorry, did you say something?" "I overheard your friend. He's a real jerk, by the way. Were you supposed to meet someone from a dating site?" "Yeah," Randy said. "It was that pretty woman in the football jersey. I noticed her as soon as she walked in. She's stunning," the woman said. "Apparently too stunning for me. Are you waiting for someone?" "My date was supposed to meet me here at 8 o'clock. He must have taken one look at me and split." "I completely understand." "Excuse me," the woman said. "I lied on my profile," Randy told her. "You might say I exaggerated my good looks." "My girlfriend convinced me to do the same thing," the woman said. "May I?" Randy indicated the empty seat. "Please," the woman said. "My name is Nancy." "So, Nancy, let me ask you, how would you describe me to your friends?" "Oh, let's not go there," she said. "I would really like to know." "Okay, well, I would say you were 5'6". 5'6.5", Randy corrected her. 180 pounds. 178. Shaved head with broad shoulders. "I like that," Randy said. "That's what I should have written on my profile." "Okay, now, let me describe you." "That won't be necessary." "I'd say you're a little chubby, but nothing Jenny Craig can't handle." "You can stop now," she said. "You have stringy hair and can use a volumizer, so how did I do?" "If your goal is never to see me again, you did just fine. It's been interesting, but I'm leaving." "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" Randy said. "This isn't going to work out. When I asked if I could buy you a cup of coffee, I meant I would pay for it." "How gallant of you," she said. She rose from her seat, straightened her skirt, and headed for the door. "Am I supposed to follow you?" Randy yelled. "Only if you want to end up in handcuffs." Randy wasn't sure if handcuffs was a reference to a sex act. Not wanting to miss out, he went after her. His pursuit didn't last long. Randy spotted a penny on the ground and stopped to pick it up. It was a 1998 Lincoln. Nothing out of the ordinary, but a penny was not something he could ever pass up. He looked around. Nancy was gone. The following morning, Randy drove to the supermarket. Meeting a woman was still at the top of his list. It was Cinco de Mayo, and he had invited George and Janice over for tacos and beer. He couldn't help but wish he had a date for the evening. 3 was such an awkward number. He walked through the international aisle and grabbed a few spices. A woman was looking at different brands of chili powder. Randy found her attractive and stood next to her. "I guess this is where you would hang out if you wanted to spice things up." He gave her a wink. The woman moved quickly to another part of the store. Randy had no idea how to meet a woman. He replaced the spices and resigned himself to a life of bachelorhood. He walked to the produce section where a woman was picking through a crate of tomatoes. He hadn't noticed if she was attractive or unattractive or younger or older. Randy no longer cared. He picked up an onion and then put it back, causing 3 others to fall to the floor. The woman stooped to pick them up when they bumped heads. "I'm sorry," Randy said. Her voice was kind and gentle. Don't worry about it. It's been that kind of a week for me. I'm having my buddy and his wife over for tacos and beer tonight, and I offered to cook dinner. I gotta tell ya, I can't believe how expensive onions are. None of my friends celebrate Cinco de Mayo, so it's just going to be me and my cat, Oscar, and you are so right about the cost of food. 59 cents for an onion. That's ridiculous. Does your cat like grasshoppers? And crickets, she said. Oscar can't get enough of them. It's nice to meet another cat owner and a frugal shopper. There are so few of us around. My name's Randy, and I hope you don't end up with a bump on your head. It's nothing a trip to the ER can't handle. She smiled at her joke. Anyway, it was a pleasure meeting you. She extended her hand. My name's Penny. Ella walked into the shabby house where the plump, smiling woman from Together for Life had directed her. This was her last chance, she thought, trying to project more confidence than she felt. Mostly she felt despair, but she knew from past experience that most men weren't attracted to such an emotion. She had tried Match.com, eHarmony, Plenty of Fish, Tinder, OkCupid. The list of sites, from free to very pricey, seemed endless. She had used Meetup.com and other group sites to find people with similar interests. She'd made some friends, had some flings, but no man had the qualities that she needed. Ella had started devoting herself to the search for Mr. Right when she was 23 and had seen a bootleg VHS video that had changed her life. She'd never really known who she was before that. A goth, surely, though now at age 41 she didn't dress as true to her aesthetic as she wanted to. Too many unwanted stares. A geek in many of the typical ways. Star Wars, Marvel Comics, Dungeons and Dragons, gory video games. A network engineer, which she'd stumbled into mostly through building computers for people she knew. She had a few close friends, a decent relationship with her parents, though her brother and sister thought she was a freak and never spoke to her. No great loss there. She was still attractive enough, a few extra inches here and there, but she kept herself well tended. All in all, a very normal, productive member of society. But none of that was her essence. That long-ago video had ruined her, in a way. She was terribly lonely and growing slowly more desolate because she was beginning to realize that it would be impossible for her to find the mate she really wanted. This hunt was starting to consume her, making it very difficult to keep her normal routine. Her boss had already spoken to her about missing work. HR had given her the names of therapists she could see. Ella knew a therapist would never be able to solve her problem. She didn't think anyone could. Her best friend, Lorne, had given her a card one day. "This is how I met Deendra," he said, referring to the girlfriend that he was madly in love with. She had held out the card to give back to him, saying, "God's not another dating agency. I can't take the stress right now." He raised an eyebrow at her. "Do I not know you better than anyone else on this earth knows you? Would I give you an invitation to just any old dating agency?" "Invitation?" she asked, her brows furrowing as she looked at the card. It looked like a normal business card at first glance, but when she turned it over she could see a small hologram. Moving the card in the light, she saw a very detailed human heart. "I had to pay $500 just to get that card for you, young lady, so you will appreciate it," Lorne chided, smiling. 500. Ella looked up at Lorne, aghast. "You didn't have to do that." "Au contraire, my little night nugget, I definitely did. You'll get no more birthday or Christmas presents from me," he said, cutting off her stream of protests with a sharp flick of his hand. "Make good use of it, or I'm taking you to that terrible Indian buffet and making you eat greasy, half-raw samosas until you puke." Still stunned, Ella turned the card back over and read the front. It said, "Together for life, we will find him for you, Ella DeVuro." "All right, Lorne," Ella said, heaving a deep sigh. "Let's see what they can do." "That's the spirit," Lorne exclaimed, giving her a brief squeeze. "If it doesn't work, I'll eat the samosas and a pair of your most disgusting socks." "I don't have any disgusting socks," Ella said, putting the card in her pocket and smiling at her friend. "Just poop on them," he suggested. "Gross," said Ella, punching his arm and then fingering the card in her pocket again. Ella had gone to the headquarters of Together for Life, which was in a rundown plaza, most of which was for lease. The door was steel, which seemed odd, and had no handle, which seemed odder. There was one of those doorbells with a camera in it, so she pushed the button and gave it an awkward smile. The steel door slid open into the wall, and she was greeted by 4 armed security guards. One said in a deep baritone, "Miss Ella, please present your invitation." Ella reached into her purse, slowly, eyeing the rifles that the 2 rear guard had slung across their backs. She pulled out the card, handing it to the guard who had spoken. He pulled a scanner from his belt and scanned the hologram on the back. He didn't give it back to her, but he looked up and smiled. "You're cleared for entry, Miss Ella. Please follow the pink hall on your right to Mrs. Whale's office. It's got little pink whales all over it, you can't miss it. Do not attempt to go anywhere else, please, for your own safety." "I won't," said Ella, alarm growing in her belly. The guards all smiled at her and backed away from the door, taking up posts in the corners of the room after the steel door had slid shut behind her. She could now see a small reception desk, a chubby, smiling woman behind it. She saw the pink hallway on the right and noticed a blue hallway leading off to her left. "This way, Miss Devereaux," the receptionist bubbled, helpfully pointing to the pink hallway. "Yes," Ella said, unable to think of another reply, and briskly walked to the correct hallway, wondering if she would be shot on the spot if she tried going the wrong way. She was despairing, but not quite suicidal, so she made no move to try it. The pink hallway was painted a nauseating shade, somewhere between a birthday cake and Pepto-Bismol. It was lined on both sides with doors, and Ella read the nameplates as she went. "Mrs. Frog," said one, on a door wallpapered with varying sizes of stylized pink frogs that seemed to fade in and out of visibility. The next plate she read was Mrs. Adder, with curling pink snakes spiraling out from the center of the door, and so on, covering many members of the animal kingdom. Mrs. Whale was at the very end of the hallway on the left. The whales on the door were surprisingly detailed, and she made out several species before the door opened. Ella let out a startled breath. "Ella Devereaux," said a slim young woman with black lipstick, blue-black hair, and black fingernails. She wore a sleeveless black dress that ended just above thigh-high lace-up boots. The boots were pink. "I'm Mrs. Whale. Please come in," she chirped, giving a florid bow and flourish with her hand as she backed out of the doorway. Astonished, Ella entered the room, which had spiderweb wallpaper and a number of purple and blue throw pillows on the floor amid plush burgundy carpet. There were gauzy curtains decorating the room, and small tables scattered about with lit candles on them. Mrs. Whale closed the door and strolled past Ella to sit on one of the fluffier pillows, opening a laptop on a table, almost knocking over a candle. "I really like your sense of decor," Ella said, stepping over to a purple velvet couch that was the only other furniture in the dim, windowless room. She sat primly, pulling her dark red skirt nervously over her knees. Mrs. Whale acknowledged, looking intently at her screen. "I've been looking over your files and—" "Files," Ella interrupted. "What files?" The young woman looked up and smiled, her teeth bright behind her lips. "When a potential client is brought to our attention, as you were by Mr. Lorne Adams, we assemble very thorough background files. Shouldn't I have given my permission for—" "You'll find," Mrs. Whale said, her smile dropping from her face, "that we don't need your permission." She said nothing further but stared at Ella with an expression that turned her bowels to water. "Right," Ella squeaked. The black and white smile returned. "As I said, I've been looking over your files, and I think this case is beyond even my considerable matchmaking abilities. But," she cried, holding up a finger and smiling even wider, "don't despair." "Too late," Ella muttered. Mrs. Whale laughed. "I know exactly who can help you. Unfortunately, he isn't headquartered here, but he's not far away. Take this," she said, standing up and retrieving a sealed black envelope from some cubbyholes on the wall that Ella hadn't noticed. She held it out to Ella, who hesitated only a moment before taking it. She started to open it, but Mrs. Whale put a sharp black nail on her hand. "Don't open it," she warned. "Take it to the receptionist up front." "Are we done?" Ella ventured, and Mrs. Whale removed her fingernail. "We are done, Miss Ella Devereaux, but your journey is just about to begin." She walked to the door and flung it open, giving Ella her same florid bow. Ella stood up. Okay, thank you, she said, holding the black envelope gingerly and making her way through the door. Mrs. Wales slammed it unceremoniously behind her. Ella walked back down the pink hall, rubbing her thumb across the spot on her hand that Mrs. Wales had touched. A little blood smeared from the spot. The receptionist accepted the black envelope and opened it, scanning the contents within. She gave a small hoot of delight. You'll be going to see Mr. Devotion. He is our very best agent. You're a terribly lucky woman. However, she said, putting the envelope and its contents in a slot in her desk and looking at her computer monitor, he is not cheap. Before I can give you his address, his fee must be paid in full. Ella's heart clenched slightly. She was paid very well for what she did, but she was by no means one of the 1%. How much is his fee? She asked. $43,256.35, Miss Devereaux. That was exactly the amount Ella had in her savings account. She had just checked it that morning. What the hell is going on here? She snapped, finally getting angry at all this flagrant invasion of privacy. How? She stopped as she noticed the guards stepping towards her, hands raising to hover over weapons. So sorry, Miss Ella, the receptionist sighed, resting her elbows on her desk and putting her chin on her interlaced fingers. My friends here get upset when someone isn't being nice to me. She smiled. Do you think you can be nice? Yes, Ella said shakily. How will you be paying today? The receptionist asked, pink lips stretched in a wide smile. Ella brought out her phone and spent a few minutes transferring her life savings into her checking account. What the hell, she thought. If I can't get what I need, I don't really want to live long enough to need a retirement fund. She handed her debit card to the receptionist, who took the card without a word. After handing Ella a receipt, she slid a small key over the desk to Ella. It looked like any old house key. Leave here and walk down the street to your right for 5 blocks. Don't bother driving. There's nowhere to park anyway, and it's not as far as it seems. Turn right into the alley between the Chinese takeout and the laundromat, and you'll see an old brown house at the end. Go in the house, and you'll see where to use the key. Now shoo, she said, giggling and waving Ella toward the front door. True love awaits you. Now Ella found herself in a crumbling room, bereft of even the remains of furniture. She wandered through the house, looking for a place to use the unassuming key in her hand. There was a door in a hallway that was closed, and Ella tried to turn the handle. It didn't move, and she was startled by a sudden screen that came to life in the middle of the door. On screen was a sun-leathered face with long gray hair sticking out in every direction. I am Mr. Devotion, he said, inflectionless. Please use your key and come in. I'm ready for you. Ella was suddenly overcome with near panic and almost bolted, but she just handed over all of her savings, so she forced herself calm. She took the key from her pocket, opened the door, and went into the room. The door closed behind her. Mr. Devotion stood near the door, motioning Ella to a dusty couch. She sat on it, trying not to sneeze. Up close, Mr. Devotion was almost the spitting image of Charles Manson. She opened her mouth to express this to him, then closed it. She was far over her head, she knew, and cursed Lorne silently. So, a young Ella Devereaux watches a movie called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Mr. Devotion began, ignoring Ella's strangled gasp, and finds that she needs a man like that for herself. Yes. It's a little more complicated than that. She huffed, her hands twisting in her lap. I don't think it is, my dear, said Mr. Devotion. You don't want to kill people. You want a man that kills people, that can't help the desire, and kills over and over and over again. You want this man to love you, and to confide all of himself to you, and never be moved to kill you. You want to help this man avoid the law so that he may indulge in his impulses, and relate every wretched, disgusting detail into your ears while he fucks you. You want to watch him at his bloody work. You want the blood of victims to splash onto your naked body. You want, please, sobbed Ella, shaking all over. Tears streamed down her face. Please stop. I'm not wrong, declared Mr. Devotion more softly. Am I? Ella cried into her hands for a few moments, her heart bursting with unnameable emotions. She lowered her hands from her face, then wiped it with a handkerchief Mr. Devotion gently pressed into them. No, she whispered. You're not wrong. Then may I present Mr. Xavier Smith, he said, and stepped back away from her. Ella heard soft footsteps approach from the shadows of the room, startled to see a man emerge from the shadows. He was so handsome she could hardly bear it. His skin was as ebony as an Alaskan midnight, his fingers long and graceful as they reached up to his face to wipe the tears that streamed down it. "Ella," he whispered, his voice like a wave of chocolate over stone. "Ella, I couldn't believe it when they told me they had my perfect match. But they were right, they found you." Ella, thunderstruck, rose from the couch. "You kill people." Xavier threw back his head and laughed. "Oh, yes," he said. 15 and counting. I will bring you every delight you have ever wanted, and you will have all my love if you are what he said you are, if you want me." Ella almost tripped over her own feet, rushing to him. "Please," she said, a fresh wave of tears running down her chin. She grabbed his hands, not sure what else to do. "Please be real," she whispered. Xavier responded by pulling her body tight against his and kissing her, hard and aggressive. When they separated, she looked into the depth of his black, shark-like eyes and finally was able to smile, a real, wide smile. "Good luck and good loving," Mr. Devotion said, already holding the door open for them. "No need for luck," said Xavier, kissing Ella's hand, and together they walked out of the dimness and into the dark. Life for a matchmaker isn't easy. Your job is to make everybody else happy and not yourself. You find yourself with that internal loneliness at the end of the day when everybody goes home to a loved one. The satisfaction of making somebody else happy, but the little bit of jealousy that comes from within. One day I was bored at the office reading a graphic novel when this gorgeous woman comes walking in. She walked down, and it was literally as if she was floating while she was walking. This beauty is 5'6" and had a body like an hourglass, wearing a tight mini skirt with a black tank top. Haley had long, beautiful blonde hair brighter than the sun that blissfully glazed her waist. I knew immediately when I saw her, and I would not want to give her up. When she arrives in my office, she greets me with a smile and introduces herself as Haley. When Haley speaks, she sounds like an angel. Well, at least what I think an angel looks like, since I genuinely never met one. She sits and says, "I am tired of being alone, and I heard great things about Indigo's matchmaking services. Will you please help me? I'll pay any amount. I want to find my true love." My heart is racing and praying she will walk away, because I have never felt true love at first sight until I met her. I insist to Haley to sit down, and I will do everything I can to help her find her true passion, which should be me, of course. It hurts me that one of Indigo's matchmaking services' most significant rules is no hitting on clients. I can't afford to lose this job when I am all alone in this world. This is all I have to look forward to every day, my stupid job. All my family had passed away in a fire back when I was in the Philippines. I was the only one to make it out alive. I usually block out love and affection expect when I saw Haley. When Haley sits her beautiful self down, I have her fill out the usual client questionnaire. As I hand over the clipboard and pen, our hands blissfully touch, and I feel a spark. When I think the spark, my heart sinks, and I look into her beautiful green eyes, and we make eye contact for a few moments, and those few moments feel like a lifetime. And when she looks away, I crave more of that intense feeling I just had. As she is filling out the questionnaire, I admire her beauty. I notice she bites her lip when she's confused, she shakes her leg rapidly when she is nervous, and she has a cute little lisp when she speaks. When she looks up, hands over the pen and clipboard, I tell her I will be in contact shortly. When she gets up, she shakes my hand and thanked me, and I watch her beautiful hips sway when she strides out the door. I think to myself, how can I let the love of my life be with anybody else? I hesitated as I input her in the matching-making system. I figure she desires for a healthy male, somebody that can take care of her and give her babies, not a scrawny woman like me. So with pain in my heart, I find Haley a match, and his name is Steve. Steve seems like a nice guy, but nobody could ever be good enough for this goddess who walked through my door this morning. I wait on informing them about the match I just made, because it will break my heart entirely knowing the woman of my dreams will be on a date with somebody else who isn't me. As I go to my daily after-work cycling class, Haley is all I can think about. As I am sweating, I am wishing the heat I am currently building out was from making out with Haley, my dream girl, not riding a stationary bike. As I go home to empty New York apartment, I imagine Haley in the kitchen with me making our vegan dinner as we give our dog little bites of our food. This picture is so bright I have to make this happen. After I do my daily after-work routine alone, I attempt to fall asleep, but I can't stop thinking about Haley. I usually don't do this with my client base, but this is a particular case. But I start to internet stalk her. I find out everything about her: she political party status, liberal, thank God, her job as a nurse at a retirement home, and the special prize, her address. It's around 3 a.m., and I can't sleep, so I decided to go on a walk to Haley's house. I start to snoop around, and I stepped on a branch. It was so loud, somebody yelled out the window, "You better get off my yard before I shoot you dead." I ran as fast as I could out of there. I feel the adrenaline through my veins, and my anxiety started to rise, so I smoke a quick joint to go into my dreamland, and hopefully I will see Haley there. I wake up the next day drowsy and rush into work. The first task of the day is to call Haley and Scott and arrange their first date. This hurts me so unbelievably bad. I pick up the phone, and it's hard for me to speak, but I inform them of their match. Both parties sound excited, and a pain shoots through my heart. A few months later, I am sitting in my office. Not a day has gone by when I haven't thought about Haley. As I am sitting in my office in my thoughts, the phone is ringing. I answer, and it's my beautiful Haley. Haley thanks me for my services and proceeds to tell me that she and Scott are moving in together. My heart drops. There goes my chance, while holding my breath, and I congratulate them on finding each other. As I hang up the phone, I am enraged. I question myself. Why did I even set this up? This should be me. Days go by, and I am angered with myself, and I am still in love with Haley. I angrily open my computer and search until I find the correct address. Woo, I scream at the top of my lungs, and I grab my grandfather's axe because it's the first weapon I see. I storm to the house with anger. There is also an X in my hand. With the pain in my heart and the throbbing in my heart, I slice Scott into pieces. Following his dismantling, I repeat the same thing with Haley. Before I kill her, I make sure to kiss her on the forehead to show my dying love for her. I apologize due to the sheer fact that this whole thing was out of respect, because if I can't love her, nobody can. After I admire the dead bodies in front of me, I grab Scott's Glock sitting on the counter, and I blow my brains out to join my family and try to achieve my beautiful Haley in the afterlife. But Ellen, he seems like such a nice boy. I suppose that Mrs. Sullivan, whom I was now allowed to call Sandra, which oddly seemed less awkwardly intimate than the Auntie Sandra of my childhood, though of course she was no relation at all. It would be unfair to say that she peppered her speech with the catchphrases of 70s comedians intentionally, but she would not have gone out of her way to avoid them. It would be very easy, and perhaps not entirely inaccurate, to say that Melvin Ainsley, the local doctor's son who was training to be a maths teacher, was the son she never had. But she did have a daughter somewhat fancifully called Clementine, though her mother resignedly allowed it to be shortened to Clemmy, born on the change. She was 13 and I was 21, and at those respective ages, an 8-year age gap matters. I couldn't help thinking that the name Clementine, as it turned out, was both appropriate and unwittingly cruel. You might say a 13-year-old can't have cellulite, but she managed it, especially on her thighs. I didn't dislike the poor kid, who didn't have much going for her, but most definitely didn't see her as the little sister I never had. I didn't dislike Melvin either. It would have been like disliking a rather earnest puppy, but even if bestiality hadn't been illegal, that didn't make him someone you wanted to marry. Mrs. Sullivan looked on both of us with, it sometimes seemed, more fondness than she did on Clemmy, for all she referred to the unprepossessing, dough-faced child as my precious late gift. "He is a nice boy." I agreed truthfully, rejoicing that we were not only in different years, but attended different universities, not precisely at opposite ends of the country, but far enough apart for even Mrs. Sullivan to realize that regular visits weren't really practical, especially as, at that time, neither of us could drive. Both of us were taking lessons, and Mrs. Sullivan perpetrated the myth that we were locked in mutually affectionate rivalry as to who passed first. Personally, I didn't care less, and he probably felt the same. I vented my frustration to Mum, and she understood, but advised me to let it wash over me. "She's always been a matchmaker," she said, affectionately enough, and with a wry expression at the word always. Sandra liked to give the impression they had been, and she crossed her fingers in a conscious or unconscious imitation of the National Lottery logo, like that since they were embryos. It wasn't strictly speaking true. Their mothers had been friends, and they'd had spells at the same school, but had drifted in and out of their connection, and it was pure coincidence that they ended up living 3 doors apart from each other. Mind you, when it comes to herself, she certainly pulled it off. I knew what she meant, of course. Don't get me wrong, she was quite pretty and fair enough. A nice person, but she was 40 and a volunteer at the animal sanctuary, and Clive was 10 years younger and a highly regarded vet. Something seemed to click, and it appeared to be a very happy marriage. As ever, I was sorry to say goodbye to my parents when I went back to university, but it most definitely combined with relief at being out of the ambit of Sandra Sullivan's determined efforts at matchmaking. Towards the end of that academic year, I obtained a significant other called Josh. We'd always got on well, but almost drifted into what my friend Steph called itemhood. We had a lot in common. We both were in the choral society and the chess club, and both enjoyed getting out into the countryside at weekends, though neither of us took it to extremes, and you would have looked in vain for heavy-duty hiking boots in our clothes. He was a keen ornithologist, but to my relief, not a twitcher. I had known one once, and discovered that early mornings on a marsh in constant drizzle, looking obsessively for some confused little bird that probably had no wish to be found, was not my idea of fun. Josh did own a pair of binoculars, but he used them sparingly. Our relationship was comfortable rather than wildly romantic. And yes, I know what you're thinking. He doesn't sound that much different from Melvin. I can't deny it. At one point, I found myself thinking rather worriedly that he even looked like him. But no, he didn't. True, they both were of medium height and had brown hair, but that applied to a large chunk of the population. There was never really much of a flame, just a well-meaning spark, but we had some good times together. Our relationship ended gently, and if not exactly painlessly, then without any deep anguish. I think we both realized that it was, at heart, a student thing, and when we went our separate ways and didn't belong to the same clubs and choirs, it would peter out. To be frank, my only abiding worry was that I supposed I'd have to tell Sandra we were no longer an item. When she had found out I did have a significant other, she had at least eased off with her determined campaign to marry me off to Melvin. She was sorry, but she had her principles. I genuinely didn't go overseas for a couple of years to escape Sandra. I won't deny it was a pleasing side effect, but not the main reason. I hadn't been able to earn as much as I'd hoped with translation work, even though I'd also achieved a postgraduate qualification. I was thinking about taking a teacher training course, and I know it sounds remarkably petty to say one of the things that put me off was that Sandra would be bound to say that as Melvin and I were both teachers that gave us something else in common, I would have questioned the else. And that could have become very trying. I compromised and did do a course in teaching English as a second language. It wasn't entirely a random thing. Steph, who was half French, had told me about an opening in a languages school her Aunt Marion managed in Normandy. But as she believed in doing things properly, I would have to have a qualification. Not a particularly high-flying one, and I did it online. Though I begrudged the time that I might have spent on translation work between my shifts at the local coffee house, I told myself that I had to be pragmatic. At first, my life at the Mason Poirier, called after the pear trees that grew in the extensive walled-back garden, seemed too good to be true. I suspected it was something of a sinecure, but frankly, I didn't care. Marion was a kind and lenient boss. I had a view of the garden from the casement window of my comfortable room, was privileged to be selected as a favored human by Marion's large, imperious, snowy white Persian cat Minette, and walks down tree-lined alleys took me to the sea or to a village with a medieval church. I only restricted my intake of camembert from a local cheesemaker, not the supermarket stuff, because I was worried I might sicken myself of it, likewise Marion's own tart aux poires. She joked that she was a rebel favoring pears in apple country. Oh, and I wasn't averse to a little glass of Calvados now and then either. Marion, with a twinkle in her eye, said she must get round to distilling her own pear version. I wouldn't have put it past her. The work itself was easy and pleasant. I didn't have a true vocation for teaching, as Melvin, apparently, did, but did have a certain flair for it, made easier by the fact that my adult pupils were eager to learn. Though it was hardly a hotbed of academic excellence, as Steph had said, Marion still took it fairly seriously. The youngest pupil at the language school was 18, but after a couple of months, I did obtain a much younger pupil. One of the students, a hard-working, courteous young man called Antoine, told me that his much older half-brother, Jean-Louis, was looking for someone to help out with his daughter, Patricia, who was 9. Her mother died a year ago, he said, sadly. Cancer. He's done his best, but she is falling behind at school. You could certainly help her with English. Her primary school has an early learning program in languages, and maybe a bit with other things, too, and be a friend to her. At first I hesitated, but then I met Jean-Louis and Patricia and agreed at once. I know it's a fallacy that shock and stress can turn your hair white, but I still wondered if the premature gray hairs on Jean-Louis' head were there before his wife fell ill and died. He did not clothe himself in mourning, but there was sadness at the back of his smile. Patricia was delightful, a red-haired sprite of a child, who said things that genuinely were droll, not the ones doting grandparents assured you were. But at times it was still all too obvious her young life had already been touched by tragedy. I saw her panic when she thought she had lost a favorite doll. Mercifully, the doll was found, and unsuccessfully fight back her tears when a song that had been one of Mammon's favorites came on the radio. I made to switch it off, but she put her little hand on my shoulder and said she still wanted to hear it. Jean-Louis quickly became more of a friend than an employer, and then more than a friend. Marion was concerned and spoke of it frankly. I am very fond of you, Ellen, and have great affection for Jean-Louis, too. The last couple of years haven't been easy for him, but relationships that are what's that English phrase on the rebound don't always work out. And what about little Patricia? We're very close, I objected. I know you are, you've been a godsend, but my dear, you cannot ever replace her mother. I've no intention of trying, I objected. I know I have no right to. Well, I can only wish you well, she said, kissing my cheek, but still not hiding her misgivings. My parents were hesitant about it, too, not least because it meant I would now be living overseas more or less permanently. I won't deny that troubled me, too. But, Mum, it's only France, not Antarctica, I pointed out. You can be there on Eurostar in no time at all. They didn't try to put any emotional obstacles in my way, and Patricia was happy about the whole thing, though I wonder how much the thought of a bridesmaid dress featured in her enthusiasm. We would have a civil ceremony, as he was Catholic and I was Protestant, not that either of us was particularly religious. But though it would be a simple one, it would still have some of the trimmings. I joked that made me sound like a turkey, and of course that led to an impromptu English lesson. At first, our life together in his rambling old house seemed even more perfect than my life at the school, where I still taught. He was quite a practical man on the surface, but not averse to romantic gestures. We had quite a few candle-lit dinners and sunrise walks by the sea. Our one regret was that we didn't manage to have a child. After a few years, we went to the doctor about it and were sent for tests and told that there was no medical reason for it they could find. We must be patient. Sometimes it did take longer. Perhaps it would be best just to relax and not think about it for a while. We took the advice, though of course we couldn't stop thinking about it, and went for a holiday in the Pyrenees. Whether coincidence or not, it seemed to have worked. I didn't tell him until I had missed my period twice and done the home test. It was as if the sun we had seen rising by the sea rose in its full glory in his expression. We decided to tell Patricia at once. She was on the verge of her teens by now, totally clued up on the facts of life, and didn't miss much. She was, to our relief, as pleased as we were, and not remotely jealous. No point to dwelling too much on what happened. I went into labor at 8 months, but though it was early, it was not, or so we thought, dangerously early. Not that long ago, one of my former pupils, Sophie, had had a child at only 7 months, and though her daughter was very small and needed to be in an incubator for a few weeks, she was fine now. I was not fine, nor was the baby a boy who was stillborn. My life hung in the balance for more than a week, and Jean-Louis only left my bedside when his mother, who took over the vigil, and the medical staff virtually dragged him away for a couple of hours' rest. I remember some of it, in shadowy flashes. Anyway, I pulled through. Mum came over from England, too, to help out with Patricia. I deeply mourned my little lad, and the hospital helped us have a special ceremony to honor him. We would have called him Armand. They told me that though it may be wise to wait a while, there was no reason I shouldn't bring a healthy child to full term. I tell myself that Jean-Louis' personality could not have changed completely in so short a time. It was latent. He was never an unkind man, not really. He certainly never meant to be. But it was as if nearly losing his second wife as well as his first triggered something that had slept. He became obsessively overprotective. He did not let me go back to work, though I pointed out that he could not stop me. "I could," he said. The dark look on his face unsettled me far more than the implication of the words. He didn't anyway. He never tried to lock me in or restrain me. But it just wasn't worth it. He kept phoning to see if I was okay, and gently, Marion pointed out that once in a while was fine, but when it got to twice in a lesson, I could see her point. I left my job and tried to take up my translation work again, with only limited success. Jean-Louis became even more obsessive. He would not let me do even any housework and employed a cleaning lady. You might think that was no great privation, but it was entirely unnecessary, and I began to feel more and more useless. I told myself he would get over it, but as the years passed, it only grew worse. I wasn't physically a prisoner in my own home, but wondered how long it would be until I was. I realized I was getting obsessive myself, wondering if a light cold signified something more dangerous, if a slight scratch would turn septic. In the end, I knew I had no choice. I didn't do it lightly, and not without a whole overbearing burden of regret. I was especially upset about leaving Patricia. We remained extremely close, and I would have loved to be a part of her becoming a woman. I also worried about what would happen to her, though I knew her father would never, ever harm her. My parents were sad but not surprised. Yes, and they were relieved too. "We could see it coming," Dad said quietly. "I've always been fond of Jean-Louis, but nobody can live with a man like that forever. It would have destroyed you." He wasn't a man given to melodramatic language, but he wasn't wrong. It was a couple of years before I began to truly be my old self again, and perhaps I never was, not deep down. But I had finally found a halfway decent translation job, was also giving conversation classes at the local adult learning center, and was, though still emotionally fragile, ready to at least think about another relationship. Melvin's dad was still the local GP and was a good friend to me. I was genuinely pleased to make the acquaintance of his son again, too. I realized that Sandra had been right all along. He had been a nice boy and was now a lovely man. That was why she was so pleased, even though she thought she was still a bit too young, that Clemmy, who had grown into her looks, was engaged to him. I wished them well, and thought of what might have been.